Hi, Aston here from Now Spinning Magazine, and with another classic album review revisited with personal insights from me from the time when I first encountered it. And the album is AC/DC, Let There Be Rock from 1977. AC/DC around 1976, 77 in the UK were seen by some people as a bit of a punk band. I know that might seem hard to believe for many people, but they'd played in Birmingham at a place called the Mayfair Suite, and I think about 15 people had gone, and they did tracks like Big Balls and that kind of stuff, and they were seen as a bit kind of a jokey kind of a band, not necessarily serious. So I never really paid them much heed at this point. However, in 1977, I was 18. I was learning to play the guitar. I was desperate to get into a band. You know, I'd grown up with, heavy rock, heavy metal, as you know, Deep Purple, Zeppelin, Sabbath, Priest, UFO. And this thing called punk was coming along, which worried me. I was only 18, and there was this new style of music that was apparently washing away everything that I loved. And I thought, well, I'm only 18, it's not fair. I've just caught up. I've just, not long left school. And now people are telling me the music I like is made by dinosaurs. But at the same token, because I was trying to get into bands and being a budding guitarist, what I liked about punk was the attitude that you could just have a go, and learn a few chords and a couple of scales and you were off. There was no doubt in my mind that as much as I loved bands like Yes and stuff like this, it was a world apart from where I was technically on the guitar, and I thought, I can't do that. And I don't know what it was. I was ambling around Solihull, I think, where I lived at the time, going through the racks in W.H. Smith's, which is the main place I went to buy music then. And I always started in A and worked all the way through, because in those days that's what you did to look for like new music. And I saw this album, Let There Be Rock. And I thought, AC/DC, it's that band again that I keep seeing in the music press, in sounds and stuff. And I looked at the cover and I thought, they don't look like a punk band. And the album's called Let There Be Rock. And, that looks like the kind of thing that I would go and see. And I looked at the back cover of this guy called Angus Young, playing an SG, and I'd just got an SG, and I looked at the song titles, Go Down, Dog Eat Dog, Let There Be Rock, Bad Boy Boogie, Overdose, Rhapsody in Blue, which is the UK version, and Hell Ain't No Place to Be, and Whole Lotta Rosie. I thought, this looks like a rock band. So it's £2.25. My apprentice wages were £16.96 or something like that, and I took a chance and I bought it. Now, a lot of people talk about the fact you sit down with vinyl and you study the sleeves. There is nothing to study here. It is literally the song titles, who's in it, who produced it, that's it. Atlantic Records, 1977. So I got home, the house was empty, I went upstairs on my record player, plopped the needle down on the first track, which was called Go Down. The track starts with a kind of status quo boogie shuffle. And I thought, that's not that original, but it was a reasonable sound, and obviously the suggestive lyrics, and I thought, well, this is rock music, as far as I'm concerned. And I went into the chorus, etc. And I thought, it's okay. And then the guitar solo arrives. Now, this is important to me, and hopefully for some of you out there. In 1977, new wave aside, rock music was being produced to a high level of polishedness that they say, a studio recording sounded like studio recordings, whether it was Deep Purple or Priest or whatever I was listening to, or Camel, whatever it was, it sounded polished. But the guitar solo, the first one I heard on Go Down, was like being at a pub gig a pub gig with about 25 people in the audience, and I'm stood right in front of the guitarist, and it sounded live and completely in your face. I was amazed. That was the first thing I noticed, was Angus Young's lead guitar was raw and right in front of me. It was kind of underproduced, but produced to sound like pure rock music to me. It was a revelation. I was thinking, do you know what? I've took a chance with this, but this could be a good album. Next up was Dog Eat Dog, which are great, like thundering drums and, you know, kind of like rolling riff. And Dog Eat Dog, you know, I was at work, I was working in a factory, I hated it, you know, and hated my boss. And this track, Dog Eat Dog, I thought, yeah, you know, and again, you know, it was raw. You know, the guitars were like, you know, open chords, steady riffs, space between the chords for the music to breathe. It was uncomplicated but sophisticated. It was really good. And then the third track arrives, Let There Be Rock. My God, was this revelation? This kind of open E riff, you know, to A, and just I actually thought, God, well, how come I haven't thought of that? How come anyone hasn't thought of a riff like that? How come that has lain undiscovered since the beginning of rock and roll, that no one has thought of that? And the lyrics were just like going to church. It was like somebody talking about the stuff that I really loved, but in a fun, kind of unsophisticated, non-academic way that, you know, this was about rock music in a fun, serious, non-serious way. I understood a little bit now why the kind of Dirty Deeds album had a little bit of tongue-in-cheek and humour in it. This was a group of guys who were just grabbing hold of rock music with a level of enthusiasm that was kind of missing from the kind of international musician beat instrumental kind of music magazines, you know, talking about the importantness of rock music. This was fun. This was fun. It really was. And then, you know, the guitar solo in this, I was going back to the record player and I was turning it up again. The house was empty and I was just getting more and more into this. I just thought, this is fantastic. And then we go to Bad Boy Boogie with a riff that again is like, surely that's been used before. Bad Boy Boogie has been used multiple times before as a riff. Walls of Steel by Saxon, they went and used it 3 years later. I think there's some riffs in the world of rock music where you have permission to go and reuse them and no one really takes any notice. And this was one of them. But again, that's kind of the bit when it drops down and there's a stop-start. It was exciting. It really was. Now, in the UK, when you turn the record over, the first track you find is Overdose, whereas in America, you had Problem Child. Now, I have to say that on the CD version, the track listing for other territories, I think, was obviously better because you didn't have the track Crabsody in Blue, which actually was the only one I used to skip. But, of course, we knew about Problem Child if you'd bought Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. It was also the B-side of a single. But let's go back to Overdose, because this to me was probably the highlight at this point. And it has remained a highlight over the years, but obviously there is another track on this album that's going to supersede this. But just remember, I'm hearing this for the first time. Now, I'm a budding guitarist. I'm trying to be. I'm doing my best, you know, and everything, you know, has to be perfect. All the bands, you know, all the musicians I know, they're all hyper-technical and, you know, really serious. I think out of all my peer group, I was the only person who actually bought the first Motorhead 12-inch, and some of my friends were horrified that I bought that because it wasn't Camel. I love Camel. Okay, it was just, let's go back. 77, I'm a different man. Boy. Overdose starts, and it kind of starts slowly, and again my interest is there because I've already travelled through side one, and then this happens. What sounds like a mistake, what sounds like an error, which sounds like a wrong move, and it's on the record. They didn't change it. They didn't go back and think, redo it. We need to take that again. They left it on. I was beside myself because this was a new world. It meant that you just play music, you just do it. That rock music is about chance, in the moment, attitude, how you feel, being 18 forever. And that's another thing that those young viewers watching this, you might think as you look at me or you look at the people around you older, you think, oh, you must change as you get older. Do you know what? You don't. You're the same person. And when I put this album on, I'm back in 1977. I'm there. Seriously, my air guitar, which you can't quite see because it's an air guitar, is fine-tuned and ready for the story at the end of this video. But that era just made me just think, my God, where's it going to go? And of course it builds. It just builds up, and then those open chords come in, and then the drums and the bass come in, and you just think, it's going to do it, isn't it? It's going to do that bit when it's just going to lock in, and they're all going to be together, and everything will come together, and those hanging open chords will become solid power chords, and there'll be a root bass and a steady 4/4 rhythm, and you just know that this is going to be killer. And it does exactly that. And so much music around that time wouldn't do what you wanted it to do. You'd buy a rock album and they'd go and try and overcomplicate it. But this was a band who deliberately kept it simple, but they kept it for your heart and your foot and your brain to connect to it. So when Bon Scott stops singing the verse, you are there because we've all felt that, what's going on in this track. And then the kind of the chorus comes in, and it's just like those open two chords, and you feel, yeah, I've felt like that. I know what that's like. And then it goes back into the rhythm again. It's just stunning. But, and this is it, before the solo comes in, I just want to say something that may be controversial. As you know, I'm a massive fan of the guitarist Paul Kossoff. You know, his feel, and now you know how I feel about him. Just check out the other videos. But I've always felt, as the years have rolled by, that vibrato that Paul Kossoff had, the only other guitarist I've kind of felt it is from Angus Young. Now, some people go, Paul Kossoff, Angus Young, Phil Aston has lost it. I don't think so. I mean, I'm talking about the tons of sobs kind of vibrato. And I think Angus Young, some people think, oh, he plays the same guitar so all the time. And let's be fair to Angus here, you never see him in a guitar magazine. He never talks about strings, amps, guitar styles. He doesn't want to have anything to do with that. He doesn't feel he wants to do that. And I identify with that because people used to say to me, oh, what's your tuning on that? Or what kind of, I don't know, I just plugged in. So I related to Angus. What I'm about to say here is that he does something where he uses guitar notes at such a simple way, and that bring in so much emotion and connection to you, the listener, and for him or them, the musicians, there's probably one of the reasons why they're one of the biggest bands in the world. Now, Kossoff did it on Mr. Big when it comes in and the first note in the solo is like on note. Actually on the note, in the key of the song. Angus does this several times. Most obviously to me is on Down Payment Blues of Power Age, on this track on Overdose. Just like this. Whatever notes come next, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because that is just, it's just takes all the words, all the song, one note, and we are off on another level. I just think, you know, Overdose is one of the best tracks for me, for AC/DC ever. And this album, I'm hearing this for the first time. I am convinced now that this is going to be a band that I'm going to be buying a lot of stuff from, and I haven't reached the end yet. And then on the UK one, after that, there's a kind of a hybrid track that doesn't really fit, and obviously in different territories, Crabsody in Blue isn't there, and it doesn't quite fit, as if they just felt they had to do something that wasn't quite part of the blueprint. Of course, as we know with AC/DC, later on they just kept to the blueprint. You know, why tamper with it? It's what you want, it's what you do when you buy an AC/DC album. So that was the only track that I kind of thought, oh. But then we come back to, again, another riff where you think, oh, hasn't anyone thought of that before? And it's Hell Ain't a Bad Place to Be. And again, with all the attitude and, you know, parents trying to get you to cut your hair and whatever. Oh, this is the 70s, kids. Nowadays, of course, your parents probably got longer hair than you. But this was just a great track, a fantastic track. So again, think, well, brilliant. I'm sold. As I say, I'm now an AC/DC fan. And then that track appears in my life, or our life, because I imagine most people, when they think of AC/DC, think of this riff, Angus, probably more than anything else. And that track is, of course, Whole Lot of Rosie. And I just knew when it started that this was going to be something special. The lyrics were obviously tongue-in-cheek, and it was just a smiley track. And again, you've got that riff starts, and then we're off and running, you know, with open chords, you know, flying through the speakers, you know, the bass player sticking completely on the root note, the drums just keeping absolutely tight and solid, and then each chorus was just those open chords, and the chorus that you could just thump the air, you know, and feel absolutely fantastic. The guitar solo, of course, was just as you'd expect the guitar solo to be. I just thought it was fantastic. But then, just when you think, well, we're going back to the verse now, and we'll do another chorus, and then we'll fade or have a crash ending, we don't do that. We kind of come out of that. We go into that kind of, and it just builds up and builds up. And again, once we get all the drums in again, Angus does that one note on the root note as he goes down the fretboard, and then we're off and running to yet another guitar solo. You know, God, this song's got so much guitar on it. And again, it just powers to the end. When I got to the end of that track, what did I do? I did this. I put it back on again, and again, and again, and again. I just thought it was stunning. I looked at my record collection of all the bands that I loved, and I love them all, and I still do. But there was something just so full of energy, crackling with rock enthusiasm in this, and the way it was produced. You know, I know a year later, you know, Eddie Van Halen was about to appear. There was so much going on, but I think that the production values and the approach and attitude, and Angus quite rightly has said, we're not heavy metal, we're a rock and roll band. This was rock and roll, rejuvenated, and absolutely in the moment. And those of you who know this album will feel the same. So what did I do next? I had to share this with my friends. I had to get this album out there. I had to make them understand what I'd thought. I bought an AC/DC album. Oh, aren't they that band that's a bit punkish? So I put a tape together. I didn't drive back then, but I was the kind of the person to put the tapes together. I bought more music than anyone else, probably still do. And I put together with this on. And we used to go out a lot and go to like pubs in the countryside where we lived around Birmingham. And I used to obviously work out, because it was like, even though we were driving from, you know, where we met up and then to the pub, I'd work out what tracks might be played in the car. So I said, oh, this is Let There Be Rock by AC/DC. And we kind of like got there just as we got to, I put together the tracks in a specific order. And just before we got to the pub, it was that everyone in the car was thinking, oh, this is brilliant, fantastic. And I knew that the last two tracks were going to be on the tape, were going to be Hell Ain't a Bad Place to Be and Whole Lotta Rosie. So as we got near to the pub, and I realised that my sequenced plan might not work, I said to my mate Steve, I said, stop the tape. I want this track to come on when we go back home. And he's going, well, why? You know, I said, please, yeah, just do it. I said, you'll, you know, I think to get the power of it, I don't want you to stop it halfway through and we get out and go to the pub. So, okay, so stop the music. And then obviously we had a few beers. And this is the 70s, everyone. So even the driver had a few beers. Wouldn't happen now, for good reason. And then afterward, we got back in the car and it was time to go home. So press play on the cassette player, and the music started. And at the end of Hell Ain't a Bad Place to Be, I knew what was going to happen. So I said, Steve, just turn this all up a bit more. Just a bit more. And so we turned it up, and Whole Lotta Rosie starts. And I think we got to probably the end of the first chorus. I can't remember. We could be heading into the second verse. We're down a fairly quiet country lane, and Steve just pulls the car over to the side into a lay-by, gets out the car, sticks the speakers, which in those days were just in the at the door wedges, sticks them on the roof, and we all get out of the car, and all of us are playing air guitar to Whole Lotta Rosie in the dead of night somewhere in Warwickshire. It was absolutely fantastic, and Steve was on the roof of his car playing air guitar. The rest of us were like got a foot on the bonnet or rushing around playing air guitar. There were cars going past us, beeping their horns, flashing their lights. They must have thought, "What the hell is that?" But that was that was the effect that Whole Lotta Rosie had on young kids back in the day. Now, whether some of us, our air guitars were out of tune or not quite in time with each other, this is highly possible based on the amount of beer we'd been drinking. But that was the power of that track, of that album by that band at that time. Now, I know that there's probably lots of you who probably didn't do that, but still bought this album. So it would be great to know what you think and what you think of this album as you play it back now. But that was the start of a relationship with AC/DC, and that carries on to this day. So I hope you enjoyed that. Give it a spin. If you haven't played it for a while, I imagine you might want to now just to see what all the fuss is about, or if you haven't before, then do that. I've got the vinyl version from the original, and obviously the CD remaster, which I think was from the early 2000s, wasn't it? I think, and it has Problem Child as it, and I think that's a better sequenced set of tracks. There's a nice little booklet inside it that tells the story of it, and I think this is well worth getting if you haven't got it before. And it's a little digipack, and it's still available, and it's really, really good. So that's my look back at the classic album AC/DC Let There Be Rock from 1977. So thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing, thank you for all your comments, thank you for supporting me and this channel. And if you want to become a patron, the details are below this video, and I shall see you on my next video.